All right. Woodrow Wilson and his progressive allies used World War I to institute what they call War Socialism. And there are going to be some very fundamental changes to the role of government in American life that starts in World War I, and then a lot of it Wilson does not plan on ending after the war is over. Corporatism is a fundamental progressive belief. The belief that the purpose of government of government is to lead the country in one particular direction by controlling industry and labor with a specific, here's the key word, plan. Wilson says that the point of government is to make all the American people work together to achieve one specific goal. That labor and capital and all the different interests are going to be subsumed to government, who is going to institute a plan to get everybody on the same page, working towards a goal. Corporatism means corporate, meaning together. This is a fundamentally different view of the purpose of government that the founders have. What's the purpose of government for the founders?
Protect liberty.
To protect your liberty so you can do what you want. A progressive corporatist view of government is that government's job is to get all of us on the same page to achieve a particular goal. And the goal, first, is winning the war, but the other goal is the progressive goal of changing, progressing, improving in their minds American society. So they're going to do a lot of things during the war which have never been seen before in American history. We're going to make a fairly long list here. Government control of the railroads. All of the railroads are put under government control during World War I. Government decides rates, fares, priorities, who goes where, who goes what, all under the control of government.
Is it like that now?
And government decides when trains ship freight. Wage and price controls. Government calls in business leaders, government calls in labor leaders and says, this is how much you're going to pay coal miners, this is how much you're going to pay this is how much you're going to pay that, this is how many hours they're going to work, this is how much you're going to sell your steel for, this is how much you're going to sell your coal for, all set by Wilson's administration. Wage and price controls, never been seen before. The income tax passes for the first time in 1916. By 1919, when the income tax first passes, the highest rate is 2%. By 1919, the highest rate is 90%. The government is taking more of people's money than it ever has before. Now we go of railroad, wage and price controls, high taxes. A federal draft. There had been a draft in the Civil War, it was run by the states. This drafts everyone from the age of, I believe, 17 to 50 men in the United States had to register for the draft and be drafted if they did not volunteer. A significant arm of propaganda. If the purpose of government is to get everybody on the same page, what do you have to do with people who are not on the same page? Chuck them in jail. We're getting there. A guy by the name of George Creel is put in charge of government propaganda. Why are we fighting this war? Get everybody on the same page. He hires tens of thousands of what are known as 4-minute men, ordinary citizens whose job it is, they learn little 4-minute speeches, they go to their friends, they go to bars, they go to street corners and explain to everybody why the government needs you on their side. It's then kind of associated with the Sedition Act. Pretty much, if you didn't agree with what Wilson wanted you to agree with, they would throw you in prison.
So, Ministry of Truth kind of thing?
Yeah. Tens of thousands of policemen are brought into this plan. You could denounce your neighbors to the cops. Such and such is a kraut lover, doesn't like the war, and then that person might find themselves in trouble with the law based on the Sedition Act. German ethnic culture in the United States, which had remained distinct for generations, was pretty much stomped out during World War I. That it became German language newspapers remained illegal. You could no longer teach your children the German language. German was no longer taught in schools. A ton of social pressure was brought to bear against Germans, were forced to take loyalty oaths. You took an ethnic culture that had been in existence in the United States for a long time and kind of stomped it out. War Socialism. We can almost get our heads around part of it if the goal was to win the war.
Mr. Walker, can you please contact the main office? Mr. Walker, please contact the main office. Thank you.
Problem is, some of these things Wilson had no interest in getting rid of once the war ended. The taxes remained very high, wage and price controls remained in effect after the war, and it's one of the reasons why the election in 1920, the American people turned away from progressivism so strongly, was because what had happened during the war under the banner of this progressive government had changed a lot of what kind of Americans expected the role to be between them and their government. That we could have won the war without all of this. And most people were behind it. The troops were, well trained and well led. But Wilson's goal was larger than that of just winning the war. Wilson wanted to change the country. He wanted to improve. He wanted progressivism. He wanted to create progress. And in his mind, a corporatist government where government made all these decisions by enlightened, educated experts, you've seen this a million times with progressives, that was Wilson's larger goal. questions on the war? Questions on war socialism?